Whoosh.
What is the best martial art style for self-defense and competition? Okay, I made a video yesterday about the Tai Chi versus MMA or MMA versus Tai Chi, right? Um, so what's the best martial art style for real life situation, for self-defense, and also for competition, right? I believe I made a video on this, you know, maybe a year or so back. Okay, when it comes to martial arts, like I always say, martial arts style, it always comes down to the person, to the practitioner, right? You have tons of different styles out there. Kung Fu, Karate, Ninjutsu, Jujutsu, Aikido, name it. Bunch of different styles. You can take up any one of these styles and practice it, right? Train it. But at the end of the day, it all depends on the person, right? When it comes to real life situation like street fighting, they have these right here, knife, right? All different type of knife. They have machete, name it. Anything that can be used as a weapon is going to be on the street, right? That changes everything. No, changes everything. Martial arts is known for self-defense. So in martial arts, there's no first attack. It's always for defending yourself. Now you have the competition part of it, where you compete to test your skills, or you compete to make a living, to make money from out of it, right? There are martial art techniques that you could use to defend yourself against knife attacks, guns, and so forth. Does these techniques really work? Again, it all depends on the practitioner, on the person. You know, how well have you been training? How long have you been training? Physically, mentally plays a factor also. So you can pick up any style you want, but at the end of the day, as I said, it comes down to the person, right? If you're on the street and you happen to get into a street fight and the person draw out a knife on you and you decide to do, some self-defense techniques you learn from a martial arts style you pick up, and the guy happened to stab you, possibly kill you. No, you could say, oh man, it was a style that didn't work, but it's the person. It's going to always be the person. And of course, you could learn bad technique, you know, which could, cause you to lose your life. But at the same time, it's still the person who's practicing those techniques. You should have the common sense to know if it's going to work or not, right? And also, you have to train your body physically, mentally. You have to be in shape to be able to defend against knife, possibly gun, which I don't recommend. I don't recommend you get in any knife fight or any gun fight. If you can avoid that, avoid it. If you can run away from that, run away from that. Because that's life and death, like I always say. So there are martial arts self-defense techniques for a knife attack, gun. If somebody put their hands on you, have you in a certain position, there are different movements that you can do to disarm your opponent. But the thing is that now, how do you know which one of these techniques gonna work in a real life situation? That's the whole thing. When you're talking about, a guy coming at you with a knife and, you're gonna do this move first and this move and that move and, you're doing like 6, 7 moves before you can get a knife out of his hand. You know, usually, the knife's gonna stab you up a couple of times before you can get that knife out of his hand. Usually in a knife fight, you're gonna get cut up, possibly killed. It just depends, you know. Same to in a gunfight. In a gunfight, most possibly you might get shot, right? You could get shot, you could get killed. And that's just being realistic now. See, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you any foolishness, that you're gonna go out there and somebody gonna attack you, you're gonna do this move, that move, and disarm him easily, like a movie, you know. Movies are good. Movies are fun to watch for entertainment, but those are movies. A real life situation doesn't play out like that. Right? And next thing you need to think about too is your environment. Environment changes everything too. You know, where you're fighting, where the fight happening, right? Concrete, grass, sand. You're fighting around tables and chairs. You're fighting around stuff that you can fall on and possibly hurt yourself or kill yourself. How many people is in the area, how much people is around you, right? Environment changes everything, how much space you have to work with if you get attacked. Are you in the restroom? Is your back against the wall? It's just so much to deal with, right? Where, like I said, there is self-defense, martial arts self-defense, but it's hard to predict these things when it comes to a real life situation, especially when it entails a gun and knife, and you have to defend yourself against that. In my opinion, through my journey, which I'm still traveling, right? When it comes to martial arts, realistically, right? From what I've learned through my journey, there are tons of martial art styles out there, like I said. And I said it all depends on the person, right? So if it depends on the person, from my journey, from my opinion, you have to be in tip-top shape, physically and mentally, right? You have to be in mentally good shape, and mentally will trigger your physical. So you need both of those. Physically, meaning that if you need to run, you can run. You need to move left, right, jump, squat. You need to do all those things. You need to use your footwork to close the distance or stay on the outside. You can do that because you're going to need that. You're going to need movement. That's the first thing, right? You have to be in physically good shape. You can learn all the techniques you want to learn. How to block a knife and take the gun away. But if you're not physically fit for that, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen for you, right? Being able to take a gun and take a knife and practice all these techniques, but when it comes down to the real deal, you don't even have the endurance to last, right? If you can't run a mile or 2 miles, then you have a lot to work on physically. That's what I'm talking about. Being able to physically move your body in any direction you need to. Be able to run, sprint, right? That's important before learning any technique out there. Your body have to be able to can go through that grind when you have to, if you have to, right? So in my opinion now, from a martial artist that's been training martial arts my whole life and still on the journey, when it comes to self-defense for street, in my opinion, right, having good hands as far as boxing technique will be very useful, right? Having footwork, movement, like a Floyd Mayweather, Muhammad Ali, right? Be able to can move in and out laterally. Your distance in your range from your opponent, right? That's very important, right? Being able to can kick like a kickboxer if you have to, meaning that you can fire your kicks from any direction, as well as using your kicks, set up your hands, use your hands, set up your kicks, right? Being able to move in and out whenever you need to. Quick on the movement, right? Because when you're in the street now, everything goes quickly. So the time it takes you to do 100 movements, you're already dead. It all depends on just one movement. It could just be one straight punch. Could be a jab. Could be a headbutt. But you gotta know how to close that distance quick enough. which is all on footwork. So movement going to be important. Having good hands like a boxer, good footwork, good kicking like a kickboxer, being able to throw your elbows and knees like a Muay Thai practitioner, right? So, in my opinion, some styles out there that will be effective for that, in my opinion, will be some karate styles like Shotokan, Kyokushin, Muay Thai, boxing. Again, it all depends on the person still, because you can train all these things and then, as I said, physically, your body is not prepared. You don't put the work in, so it's not going to work for you. But you see a lot of these martial art styles like Kyokushin, Shotokan, the techniques are very pinpoint accurate when delivered, right? There's no winding up in the techniques. You want quick movements to get you in there and get you out, right? Wrestling is the next good thing to know. If you notice some wrestlers, they're crafty, they're grinders, they put the work in, the training to be a wrestler is tough. They have that push forward, not giving up. That's why you notice in the UFC in the cage, you have a lot of wrestlers who usually win the fights because you just have that competitive push and grindy craftiness about them, not giving up because of the training. So wrestling is very good to know too, just in case it depends on the situation you're in. If you happen to be on the inside, depends again on the environment, can change things. So if you're in a small area, it's good to know some wrestling. Very important. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the next thing. Very important to learn. You can lock up your opponent, you can choke your opponent out. Again, it depends on your environment again. I don't recommend you being on the ground in any street fight. But if you happen to end up there, it's good to know these things. And in my opinion, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling would be excellent self-defense if you're in a tight situation, right? Long range, as I said, I will use my boxing. You can use your kickboxing, karate, Shotokan, Kyokushin, kind of a stand-up, right? Again, they have other martial arts out there like Goju-Ryu, Shorin-Ryu, Kung Fu, like kind of like a Sanshou kind of vibe going, where you're able to can fire your hands like a boxer and implement kicking and knowing distance and range from your opponent, right? So whatever martial arts you're practicing or you're going to implement in combat sports or in a real life situation, you want to be able to be flexible with your movements, right? Like an example like that MMA versus Tai Chi guy, right? You don't want to, let me explain, you don't want to rely on just trying to pull off a throw or a certain blocking technique and that's it, right? Because it depends on who your opponent is. They could be that kind of person that knows how to throw the hands, knows how to close the distance, move in, move out, as well as knowing the ground. So they can be very technical, and you're just trying to look for a certain punch or kick to come so you can block and go for a grab, right? It can work, but it all depends on the person you're fighting. All depends on the environment. Is your opponent the average Joe? Which it could be. Average Joe, somebody that probably doesn't know how to punch, doesn't know anything about fighting, right? Now, whatever the Tai Chi guy know or whatever grabs and throws that you're going to implement will possibly work, if you're fighting against an average Joe. But again, on the street, you never know who you're going to be fighting. You never know what's going to happen, right? So you want to make sure that you keep your techniques sharp, where you have the hands to throw, meaning that you know how to throw a jab, You know to throw a hook. You know to throw uppercuts. You know to throw elbows. You know, straight right, right at the pocket. You know to move your head off the center line. Slip punches, right? You know to kick high, low, midsection. You know how to move in, move out. If you pull a knife on you, you know how to move away from the knife if you have to, right? Again, with knife techniques and gun, it's a whole different environment. It's life and death, as I said, right? Whenever it comes to knife and gun, what I've been taught all my life is that you want to grab a hold of that knife hand away from you, or the gun hand. You want to grab, that's your first movement, is to grab a hold of the wrist of any knife or gun, and you hold on to that for your life. You don't want to let that hand go, and you hold that weapon away from you. Whatever happens after that all depends on the movement you make, right? Whatever movement you do after that will determine the outcome, life or death. So you always want to hold on to that knife or gun hand, and from holding on to it, obviously you're going to try to take away that weapon from the person. That's the first movement you're going to do. There's no other movement in any knife or gun situation. There is no let me kick the gun out of the hand, or let me do this move first and second, third. There's no second and third moves in any gun or knife. It's always bam for that wrist, and you hold on to it away from you. Once you grab the wrist, it's already away from you. That's just it. There's nothing else, right? And whatever else you do after that will determine the outcome. But as I said, you want to have movement, footwork, be able to throw your hands like a boxer, throw your kicks like a kickboxer, elbows, knees like Muay Thai. You have wrestling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and most important, you're physically capable of doing those techniques. As I said, it all depends on the person. If you ain't physically capable or prepared for throwing punches and kicks, it's not going to happen for you if you need to, right? In my opinion, those are the best self-defense techniques, in my opinion, when it comes to any street scenario or for combat sports, right? That's just basically it, in my opinion. You can do all these blocking and take the knife and 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 6 movements, and yeah, it could work against the average Joe. But you never know who you're fighting out there.